Hey, good afternoon, everybody. They say necessity is the mother of invention. Well, it turns out, yes, I will be losing my stove and getting a new one in a couple of weeks. And I thought, well, they have to haul the old one out and then do the backsplash and bring it in. And I'm going to be without a stove for a few days, and I'm going to need to eat something. So, I thought about what I'd like, and I came up with this, and I did do a test run on these. They're really good. Okay, so you can either keep them in the fridge or freeze them and then microwave them or whatever. Good for a quick supper or lunches or whatnot, right? So what you're going to need are and you know what, as far as the tortillas go, any 10-inch white flour is fine. I don't know what would happen if you use corn, they might break. And so about a pound of stew meat, you're going to trim the bad gristle off, but leave the connective tissue in. Don't try to trim the whole thing because it's going to really help with the sauce. Now, I love sweet onions. If you can only get yellow onions, do that. As far as this is concerned, now, I love this concentrate stuff. If you can't, just use a can of consomme and top it up to 2 cups, all right? So the first thing I'm going to do is get the meat cooking because that's going to take the longest. Yeah, I really like the place I get this from. They do it as shrink wrap, and it's just nice because that way it's always fresh. All right, so it's tempting to throw all the chunks in at once, but they're not going to cook properly. So you just want to get pieces about that big. Okay, and what I was talking about now this one's not going to slice really easy, but this is just a little bit too much connective tissue. So any big chunks like that you want to take off. Now, if you've got somewhere it's shot through like that, that's just fine. That's going to add texture to the product. Plus, collagen is good for the skin. Okay, so I've got all the stew meat trimmed here. There was only that much that's going to go in the compost pail. So, just put all this in here. Just pop all that in a cup. It's about 1 cup. And you're just going to top it up with cold water up to the 2-cup mark. Now, I will be reducing this later, so if you're asking why am I doing this, it's just to make sure that the beef doesn't burn, okay? And you can either sprinkle just a bit of pepper on top of that, toss it in. Just make sure that it's spread out flat in the bottom. And just pop that in the Instant Pot. I cook it for 40 minutes because you want this falling apart. Yeah, I had that set for 55 for something else. So just bring that down to 40 minutes manually and just let that go. So I just did my normal trim there, cut the ends off, cut them in half, take off the outer layer, and there is a special cut you need for this. Well, I mean, you don't need to, but it'll just come out a lot better. And what you want to do is you want to cut it like that. So what these are going to do is they're going to fry in threads, sort of, or strings, whatever you want to call it. And that way you are going to have a better texture, and the meat is going to kind of marry up with the onions. Oh, and I forgot the cheese, the beginning. I'll get that directly. Yeah, so start that over medium. Put in a tablespoon or 2 of butter. The amount is not critical. And just put in a little bit of oil like that. Push all the onions in there. I always start this from a cold pan because the butter just melts into the onions anyways, and it doesn't really make a difference. And this way the butter will not burn. Okay, so I'm trying to do like Price is Right shot here. It's not working. But I forgot to put the cheese on the counter at the beginning. I'm slipping. But I buy this in big blocks. You don't have to, and you don't have to use extra old. I just like it. And if you want to use just some kind of cheddar or whatever cheese you like, just either get like a 10-ounce pack shredded or 300 grams, shred it yourself, don't matter. Now, this was originally a 1.2 kilo, which is 300 grams. So I'm gonna have to, I should have left a mark on here, eh? So I basically am gonna have to eyeball that and call that 300 grams. Just took a minute there to stir the onions. I always grate this directly into the bowl. It's just so much easier than I'm going to clean it up after. And use the coarse side. That's going to go in the fridge. Now, if I had not mentioned this to you before, and you can see the cheese stuck on there, okay? If you let this sit on the counter and dry out, it is just going to bake in the dishwasher. It'll be really hard to wash. If you just do it under cool water right away, and obviously, wash it this way. Do not grate your fingers. And you really do not have to get ceremonious about this. Just toss it all in. And now you can see that the meat is literally falling into shreds, which is what I want. And you're going to be stirring this quite a bit, so it's not strictly necessary to mash it all down at the get-go, unless you want to. I mashed up all the meat while I was waiting for it to boil, and kind of feel around on the bottom of the pan to make sure that any of the bits from the onion when it was caramelizing are gotten back into the sauce. You can kind of feel your way around with a spatula or the tongs or whatever you're using. And now I'll just let it boil down. Okay, that's been a few minutes. You can see about half of it's boiled off. Just leave it at this heat, but stay with it, because you don't want it to boil dry and burn. Second forgotten ingredient, the breadcrumbs. Good thing I wrote all this down in the beginning, eh? All right, so we're right at the end here. Now, you don't want it to dry out. That's what the breadcrumbs are for. If you make the wraps when it's this damp, it's going to just soak through the bread. But if you boil it all the way down, it could burn, and it's going to taste really dry. So turn the heat off right now. Get a 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs, panko or otherwise. Get all that stirred in, and what these will do is just be sufficient to soak up that last bit of moisture. I'm going to transfer this to a metal bowl and let it cool right off. It's important to be cool before you add the cheese, or else you're just going to get this big goopy mess that you won't be able to make wraps with. So just kind of spread that out so it cools down quick. Then clean your pan right away, because you're going to be using that to cook the wraps in. Okay, it's all cooled down. So just break that up loose. Dump in the cheese. And then kind of just mix it all together. So this is why you want it cold before you do this, because you want the cheese mixed in with the meat, but you don't want it to like melt in one lump, which will happen if you put it in when it's hot. Yeah, and as it gets mixed, just kind of try to turn it over a little, and that'll get the cheese mixed up fairly evenly. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to look visually like there's more, you know, that it's not all in one spot. Now, how many this makes depends on a couple of things. How big the pack of beef is, how big your onions are. So I can't give you an exact number, probably 8 or 9. 10 if you don't fill up the half cup completely, because I find a half cup measure, just spoon some in, works pretty good. So what you do with this is just pop it up about halfway. You can pull it back a little if you want. Fold it up on this way, that way. Now you're better to have them closer in like that, because if you put them even, they'll go pointed out. So in a little bit, grab it, hold it tight, and then as you roll, see what I mean? It starts to even up. And then you have one, and you just lay that down on your sheet. I got a small pan, with some parchment so they don't stick. And there's another. Yeah, so that's what I mean. If I packed it in like this, it would make far less. So I'm just going to kind of scoop some of that out. And like that. And by all means, if you want to get in there with your fingers, go ahead. I just find it neater and easier to do it this way. Okay, there's another one, again pointing it inward. And even that, see, it starts to go out already. So you want to catch it on the first press. Don't try to catch it when you're going back in. And if it's a little pointy, well, it doesn't matter. It's lunch, okay? Yeah, so it looks like it's going to make 10. The onions were a little bigger than the first try. And I think the pack of meat was just slightly larger. There was less trim. And the bowl is nice and empty. Yeah, see, and they just keep wanting to go out. That's why you always put them in. And there's a couple that are pointing out a bit, and it doesn't matter. So there's my completed pan. And now I'm just going to go brown them to finish them off. So I put the pan on medium heat and get it fairly warm before I put it in. Because the key to these things is you want them to brown and seal. That's why you always put them in with the open side down. And see, this one got away from me. I'll put that one down this side. Yeah, you should be able to get 5 in a pan this size, which is only 2 batches then. Now you don't want to check them too soon, because if the filling is not set inside, it's possible for the wraps to fall apart. I do use tongs for this bit. So what you want to do is just kind of like look at one carefully. That's nearly ready to turn, but not quite. Okay, now if you have the heat up too high, you can't miss it because it'll start to smoke and it'll be kind of like a burning smell. So turn it right down, take it off the heat. The wraps are not lost. They'll just have like a little charred toast thing on the outside, and they might taste a little burnt, but you can still eat them. I have. See how we're doing? Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, so they're not going to fall open is what you're really looking for. Now once the pan is hot, they do tend to cook quicker. If you've ever made my quesadillas, you'll know what I mean by that. So just keep an eye on it. Don't turn the heat down. Just stay close. Yeah, see, there's a little dark on that side, but that's fine. Just take them out. I put them right back on the sheet. They're not burned or anything. Second batch. Yeah, it's nice to know the second batch always cooks faster, so it's not like you're at the pan all day. Now these I'm going to be freezing since I won't have a stove. So I'm just concerned that they're a nice color on the bottom. That's good for me. I'll put them on the pan, transfer them, and cut one open for you. So let's pick a nice one there. Now if you're going to freeze them like I will, what's really important is you let them cool off completely before you bag them and freeze them, because else the condensation from the moisture will make the bread go soft and lose all its crunchiness. Okay, so let's just see what we've got here. There we go. This one should have cooled down enough. We can give you a nice look. Okay, so there's my beef and onion and cheese wraps, and it is getting close to supper, so yeah, they have a nice crunch on them. Good texture. Tastes really good. And you know I don't talk up my food, so if I say that, I mean it. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you try these. See you again.